You're not living, you're existing. There's a difference, and you feel it. Living is when your days have texture, color, meaning. Existing is when everything blurs together into one long gray hallway of sameness. Wake up, go through the motions, scroll, sleep, repeat. And somewhere in that loop, you stopped feeling. Not sadness, not joy, just nothing. And the terrifying part? You don't even know when it happened. When did you become a passenger in your own life? When did empty become your default? This story is about someone who woke up from that trance, who chose aliveness over numbness, and what they learned will crack you open in the way you need. Now, I need you to understand why this video matters. This will help you understand why you feel empty even when your life looks full. Because emptiness isn't about what you're missing, it's about disconnection from your authentic self. Most advice tells you to add more gratitude, more goals, more purpose. But this will show you that healing emptiness requires subtraction, removing the false identities, inherited expectations, and numb distractions that buried the alive version of you. You'll learn that feeling empty isn't a flaw, it's a signal, and signals can guide you home. So let me tell you about Elena. She's 41 years old, successful marketing executive, beautiful home in the suburbs, loving husband, 2 healthy kids, 10 and 13, financial stability, a life that, on paper, checked every box. By every external metric, she'd won at life. Her Instagram feed looked like a magazine spread. Her career trajectory was the envy of her former classmates. Her family looked perfect in Christmas photos. But every morning when she woke up, before opening her eyes, there was this moment, this split second, where she'd feel it, the emptiness, like a black hole in her chest. And then she'd open her eyes, plaster on the smile, and perform the role of someone who had it all together. Her friends envied her, would say things like, "I wish I had your life. You're so lucky. You've got it all figured out." Her family was proud. Her mother would brag about her at gatherings. Her colleagues admired her, respected her, asked for her advice. But Elena felt like she was watching her own life through glass, present but not really there, going through the motions but not feeling them. She'd sit in meetings where important decisions were being made and think, is this it? Is this what I worked so hard for? She'd drive her kids to soccer practice and think, who am I? Like genuinely, who am I underneath all these roles? She'd lie next to her husband at night, this man she'd been with for 15 years, and feel completely alone. Not because he was distant, but because she was. She tried everything to fill the void. Therapy, talked about her feelings for 6 months. Her therapist was kind, asked good questions, but nothing changed. She understood her patterns, but she still felt empty. Meditation. She downloaded all the apps, tried morning practices, evening practices, and it just made her more aware of the emptiness, which somehow felt worse. Like turning on a light in a room and realizing just how empty it actually is. Self-help books. She read dozens. They told her to be grateful, to journal 3 things she was thankful for every morning. And she did. And it made her feel guilty. Guilty for not being happy with what she had, for feeling empty when so many people had real problems. She bought things, new clothes, new furniture, a Peloton she convinced herself would change everything. She took trips, spa weekends with girlfriends where she smiled through brunch and felt nothing. She changed her hair, joined a gym, tried new recipes, volunteered at her kids' school. None of it worked. None of it touched the emptiness, because she was trying to fill the void with external things when the emptiness was internal. It wasn't about what she was missing, it was about the absence of her. The version of Elena that existed before she became who everyone needed her to be, the girl who painted, who used to spend hours in a room with watercolors creating worlds that made sense, who wrote poetry in spiral notebooks and didn't care if it was good, who stayed up late with friends talking about the universe, about consciousness, about what it all meant, who felt things deeply, who cried at movies and laughed until her stomach hurt. That girl died slowly over 20 years of becoming successful, respectable, responsible. Every choice she made to become acceptable buried another piece of who she actually was. And now, all that was left was a shell. A very competent, very impressive shell performing a life that looked perfect but felt hollow. It happened on a Tuesday. Nothing dramatic, no crisis, no tragedy, just a regular morning. Elena was making breakfast, scrambling eggs, packing lunches, checking emails on her phone, living the multitasking circus she'd perfected. And her daughter, her 13-year-old, looked up from her cereal and asked a simple question, "Mom, what makes you happy?" Just like that, out of nowhere. What makes you happy? And Elena opened her mouth and answered, and nothing came out. She didn't know. She genuinely didn't know what made her happy. She knew what made her husband happy, golf and old movies and a clean garage. She knew what made her kids happy, what made her boss happy, what made her parents happy. But her? She had no idea. She couldn't name a single thing that brought her joy that wasn't about someone else's joy. She stood there holding a spatula, eggs burning on the stove, smoke starting to rise, and she started crying. Not sad crying, awakening crying, like something inside her that had been asleep for 20 years suddenly opened its eyes. Her daughter jumped up confused. "Mom, what's wrong? Are you okay?" Her husband came into the kitchen concerned on his face, and Elena said something she'd never said before. "I don't know who I am anymore." Just said it out loud. Let it hang there in the air. I don't know who I am. That afternoon, instead of going to her 2 o'clock meeting, instead of being responsible Elena who always shows up, she called in sick. Actually called in sick for the first time in 3 years. And she drove to the beach, sat in her car in the parking lot, stared at the ocean, and asked herself a question she'd been avoiding for 2 decades. If no one was watching, if no one had expectations, if I could just be me, who would I be? What would I do? What would I feel? And she started writing. Not on her laptop. She found an old receipt in her glove box and wrote on it. Not a to-do list, not a plan, just stream of consciousness. All the things she'd given up to become who she thought she should be. Painting, writing, long conversations about nothing and everything that lasted until 3 a.m., dancing in her living room to music that made her feel alive, reading novels that served no productive purpose, lying in grass watching clouds shift into shapes, taking walks without a destination. All the things that made her feel like herself that she sacrificed on the altar of productivity and responsibility in adulthood. She wrote until her hand cramped, until the receipt was covered front and back in tiny writing she could barely read. And she realized something that broke her and saved her at the same time. The emptiness wasn't depression. It was grief. She was grieving the death of her authentic self, the self she buried to fit the mold of success, motherhood, marriage, adulthood, all the versions of herself she killed to become acceptable. And that realization, as painful as it was, became the beginning of her healing. Because you can't resurrect what you haven't acknowledged died. You can't return to what you haven't admitted you left. Elena didn't quit her job, didn't blow up her life, didn't have some dramatic eat, pray, love metamorphosis, but she started making small, sacred choices. Every Tuesday and Thursday evening, after the kids were asleep, after the dishes were done, after she'd fulfilled all her obligations, she painted. Set up an easel in the garage, bought cheap acrylics and canvas boards, and she painted. Not to be good at it, not to produce something impressive, not to eventually sell her work or have a gallery show. Just to feel her hands create something that had no purpose except expression. To remember what it felt like to make something just because it wanted to come out of her. She started saying no. To the PTA committee she joined out of obligation. To social events that drained her. To being everything to everyone. And at first, people were surprised. Elena always says yes. Elena are always available. But she held firm. And in the space that no created, she found room to breathe. Room to exist as herself instead of as everyone's version of her. Room to be. She had honest conversations with her husband. Sat him down one night after the kids went to bed and told him the truth. I've been performing a role, playing the part of the wife I thought you needed. But I don't know if that's who I actually am anymore. I need to remember who I was underneath the titles. And instead of being threatened, instead of getting defensive, he looked at her with these soft eyes and said, I want to know that version of you too. I think I married her and then we both forgot she existed. Let's remember together. Slowly, the emptiness started to shift. Not all at once, not like flipping a switch, but gradually, like dawn. Not because she filled it with things, but because she reconnected with the parts of herself she'd abandoned. The creative part that didn't need to be productive to have value. The contemplative part that could sit with questions without needing answers. The part that could just be without justifying her existence through accomplishment. 6 months later, her life looked almost identical from the outside. Same job, same family, same house, same routines. But internally, everything was different. She wasn't performing anymore. She was participating. She wasn't going through motions. She was creating moments. The emptiness didn't disappear completely. It still comes back sometimes, like weather, like a reminder. But now she knows what it's signaling. You're drifting from yourself again. Come back. Come home. And that's the story of how Elena healed her emptiness. Not by adding more to her life, but by subtracting the layers of performance, expectation, and should that had buried her alive self. By remembering that fullness doesn't come from achievement, it comes from authenticity, from living as yourself instead of as everyone's version of you. So what did Elena actually discover? What are the truths underneath this story? First truth: emptiness is a signal, not a flaw. You've been treating emptiness like a problem to fix, like something wrong with you that needs to be corrected, but it's not. It's a signal. Your soul's way of saying, we've drifted too far from who we actually are. It's not telling you something's wrong with you. It's telling you you're living wrong for you. The emptiness is the gap between your authentic self and your performed self, and the wider that gap, the emptier you feel. Healing doesn't come from adding more. It comes from closing that gap. Second truth: you buried yourself to become acceptable. Somewhere along the way, you learned that being yourself wasn't enough, so you became who people needed you to be. The responsible one, the successful one, the put-together one, the one who has it all figured out. And every time you chose acceptable over authentic, you buried another piece of yourself. The loud piece, the weird piece, the creative piece, the questioning piece. All the parts that didn't fit the mold. And the emptiness you feel is all those buried pieces screaming to be remembered. The healing isn't addition, it's excavation. Third truth: fullness comes from expression, not consumption. You've been trying to fill emptiness by consuming. More content, more purchases, more experiences, more achievements. But consumption creates temporary satisfaction, not lasting fullness. It's like drinking salt water when you're thirsty. It feels like it should work, but it makes you emptier. Fullness comes from expression, from letting what's inside you come out. Creativity, conversation, movement, whatever your soul needs to express. When you're expressing your authentic self, emptiness dissolves because you're no longer hollow. You're full of you. Fourth truth: you don't need to blow up your life. The answer isn't burning everything down. It's not quitting your job or leaving your family or moving to Bali. It's making small sacred choices that honor who you actually are within the life you have. 1 hour a week to paint. 1 evening to read fiction that serves no purpose except joy. 1 morning to be still, without agenda. These aren't indulgences. They're survival. They're how you stay connected to yourself while living in a world that constantly demands you be someone else. So how do you actually reconnect? First practice: the subtraction audit. Write down everything in your life you do out of obligation, expectation, or performance. Not what you want to do, what you feel you have to do. Then circle the ones that drain you most. Pick one, just one, and remove it. Say no to it. Create space before you try to fill space. You need room to breathe before you can remember what breathing feels like. Second practice: the aliveness inventory. Ask yourself, What activities make me feel most alive? Not productive, not successful, alive. What did you love as a child before anyone told you what you should love, before you learned to perform? Make a list. Then schedule 1 hour this week, just one, to do something from that list. No justification needed, no outcome required. Just expression, just remembering. Third practice, the daily reconnection ritual. Every morning before you become who everyone needs you to be, spend 5 minutes being who you actually are. Journal, draw, move, sit in silence. Whatever lets you touch the authentic self underneath the performance. This isn't about productivity, it's about remembering you exist beyond your roles, beyond mother, employee, spouse, friend. Underneath all of that, you're still there, waiting. The fourth honest conversation. Tell one person you trust, I've been feeling empty, and I'm trying to remember who I am underneath all the roles I play. Say it out loud. Let someone witness your reconnection. You don't need their advice, you need their presence. Healing happens in being seen as you actually are, not as who you pretend to be. You came here feeling empty, wondering if something was broken inside you. And I hope you're leaving with a different understanding. You're not broken. You're buried. Under years of becoming acceptable instead of authentic. Under layers of performance, obligation, expectation. And the emptiness you feel, it's not a void to fill. It's a signal to excavate. Elena didn't heal by adding more to her life. She healed by subtracting what wasn't actually hers, by reconnecting with the parts of herself she'd abandoned to become acceptable. And you can too. Not by blowing up your life, but by making small, sacred choices that honor who you actually are. Here's your truth. Say it with me. I am not empty. I am buried. And I know the way back to myself. Say it again. The emptiness is not a flaw. It's a compass pointing home. One more time. I don't need to add more. I need to subtract everything that isn't actually me. If this gave you permission to stop performing and start living, hit the like button. Not for me, for you. As a marker of this moment where you decided to remember yourself. Drop a comment and tell me what's one thing you buried that you're ready to excavate. Make it real. Name it. And subscribe if you need more reminders that your authentic self is worth the excavation. You're not broken. You're just covered. And underneath all those layers, you're still there. Waiting. Welcome home.